In today's video, we're going to take a look at the third tangle that will be used in our final robot composition. But before we do that, I wanted to just comment for those who might be joining partway through or have only seen other videos and aren't real sure where we're headed. I'm calling these the robot project, but we're not drawing robots yet. So what we're doing is learning a handful of patterns that will be employed in our final drawing to represent certain objects or certain technologies that have that robotic feel to it. And we'll also take some time to learn a couple different robot characters that we can draw as well. But I just wanted to explain that before we go on further. That these are not robots in and of themselves, of course, but will come together hopefully to form a fun and interesting robot picture. Today's tangle is called Cirquital. And we'll take a look here. I'll write this down for you. Cirquital. And this is a tangle by the Zentangle headquarters. They are the folks that kind of put this step out together. So we'll give that credit where credit is due. And we're going to use our own slightly modified version of it, but that's the whole fun of the project here. So in order to draw this, we need to start with a base of a circular shape. And to do that, oddly enough, we're going to draw a cross through our paper or our tile so that we have a center that we can identify. Let me zoom in just a tiny bit here. There we go. Hopefully that is viewable. So here's our center. And then we want to make a couple marks on the outer edge. Try to keep them about in the same place. And then just in a little bit from that again, roughly the same distance, hopefully, in all these cases. And we're going to use those as target spots to draw a curved line. So we're going to create our circle in a freehand method. It will be an imperfect circle, of course, but we want to try to make it as uniform and as decently circular as we can, just for the purpose here that we'll see in a moment. And so we're just using these little marks as a target so we can put our little half moon or C-shaped curved lines there. And then we're just going to do a curved line to the outside of that will aura that first line right across like this. Okay. And we just use those marks as a guide to sort of keep us on target. Now, if you can draw a circle in a better way freehand, then that's completely fine. Obviously, use whichever way you want to get a nice circular shape on your paper. You can even use other objects, like you could take this and trace around it. This is just a worry stone that I can carry in my pocket. And then you also would have to have a slightly larger one. You could use coins or something like that. But today we're just doing this freehand. So we're going to take this, and now I'm going to use my pen, and I'm going to ink in these lines. So I'm going to try to be as careful as I can, not worried about perfection or precision, but I just don't want it to look like an egg or something like that. Okay, and then we'll do the same with that outer one. I'm just doing it in pieces just because it's easier for my hand to guide through that process that way. Got a little warble on it, but that's all right. I'm not worried about that. Okay. So we get our basic shape, and now what we're going to do is add what I call a shark fin shape to the inside of this. We're going to do 3 of them. We're going to have one that kind of comes down here, and then we'll have one there and one there, and you'll see here in a moment what I mean. So to create this shark fin, we're going to have a base on it, and it's going to come toward the center to a point and then go back, and you'll see here exactly what I'm talking about. Looks like a shark fin, at least in my mind, if you imagine it sitting like this on the back of a shark. And now I'm just going to draw another similar shape right here, and it's going to go in behind like that. And now I'm going to draw another one that comes in sort of from this direction. Imagine where it goes behind. It's going to come back around here. about like that. Okay? So we've got our 3 shark fin shapes here. And now in this little area, this little border sort of that we created, let's draw what will look like little orbs, but they're meant to represent rivets or bolts or something that hold this thing together. So I've just created one in the 4 quadrants, and then I'll put one in the center between all of those. Some might say this looks like a porthole on a ship or something, and I guess I can see that. And now we want to create a series of small dots that will represent other rivets, smaller ones perhaps, obviously, that are somehow holding these other pieces together. I'm just tapping the tip of my pen down. And you can do that however you'd like. Your pen may be a little different, obviously. And these don't have to be perfectly symmetrical or anything. We're just representing this notion of metal and rivets holding it together. And now what we want to do is ink in these areas that are open. And what this whole thing is, I'm going to use actually a larger pen to do this with, but what this whole thing is to represent in our final drawing, in our robot picture, is a sort of a mechanical door. If you've seen those in sci-fi movies where they sort of spiral together and close and open, obviously these pieces wouldn't actually, in a real world, physically fit together that way. They'd have to be very large and overlap in strange ways, but it creates that impression, and it's a very simple and fun way, at least I think, to apply this tangle, Cirquital, which is normally a tangle not meant to be a robotic drawing. And we're just going to employ it in that way in our drawing and turn it into one of those mechanical doorways. Sort of a futuristic looking technology that opens in a circular hatch. And you'll see how we apply this in our final drawing, but as with the others, today we're just learning the pattern and getting the practice of drawing it at least once, hopefully, before we try to put it together in our final drawing. So now we want to add a little bit of shading to our drawings. We're going to take our pencil, graphite pencil hopefully is what we've got, and I'm going to add a little bit of graphite around these edges where it meets the outer rim. And this will just allow me to create a little bit of a shadow, giving a sense of depth there. Like this outer ring is in front of, and these fins are behind it. And then wherever they overlap, I'm going to add a little graphite as well, just to show that sort of dimension as well. And then we'll use our tortillon just to smooth some of that out. Create a little bit of a gradation in the shadow there. And again, I know these shadows don't show up as well on the camera as they do in real life, so I'll pick this up here in a moment and show you that. Just kind of, hopefully you can see a little bit better at different angles where the light's not striking the graphite. That's the funny thing with graphite. We're using it for shadows, but it's also shiny and reflective under light, so we can't, sometimes can't see it as well. I'll darken it a little bit here just so it might make it a little bit easier. And then once we have that, this is not a necessary step, but I'm going to use graphite to also create a tiny bit of a shadow underneath each of these little bolts. It just will help give a sense of depth to it again. So I'm just making a little curved line of graphite underneath the bolt. almost like the light is being cast. And we're not worried about accurate light sourcing, but that's sort of the idea behind it, so that you know why I'm doing that. We're just gonna give a tiny bit of softness to that, like a cast shadow, because that little bolt is raised. It's got a little bump, if you will, on this ring, and so it creates a little more sense of depth and I don't want to call it realism, but for lack of a better word, something like realism. And so there we have our circuital. If I can pick that up here without ruining my tile. We've got circuital, which will function as a circular hatch or doorway of sorts in our final robot drawing.